All right, the next thing that's discussed in here is the selection sort and binary search algorithms. With the selection sort, it's not much different from what I showed you before with a bubble sort. What you do, if you look at the example that they show on the screen here, you go through here and you find, okay, you start at the beginning and you go, okay, is this the smallest? So look through the whole thing. No, it's not. So you look through all of them. And you say, oh, that's the smallest. So you flip those two. Okay? And you keep doing it. Again, as you do it, as I mentioned with a bubble sort, now that you only have, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you put 1 here, then you only have to do it 5 times. And they show you this pictorially here. So after you do the 1 swap, you can see again the 1 and the 5 were swapped. Then the second time you do it, the 2 and the 7 are going to be swapped, etc. So they'll just keep going through it. It's a way of doing it. All right. There are literally books on search algorithms that you can buy. Okay. And when I say books, we're talking thick books, thousands of pages. The binary search algorithm, I've told this story before, maybe to you guys, I don't know, but I always think it's funny, you know, that sometimes during the summer, be sitting there watching a TV show. Like I remember watching The Price is Right with my wife, and there was a guy on. It usually is a guy. There was a guy on, and it was guess the price of the refrigerator. And he had like a minute, and he said $700. And this is how long ago it was Bob Barker. He goes higher, and he goes 701. And I'd look at my wife and go, he's not going to win, you know, because okay, how much? $1,000. He says lower. And you say 500, and he says higher. Well, now in 2 guesses, very similar to the guessing game, you know now it's got to be, you know, somewhere within $500 and $1,000 in 2 guesses. So you keep cutting the list that you have in half. This is about as fast as it gets when you are trying to go and look for something. It's a search algorithm, so it expects that the stuff that you're searching is already in sorted order. This won't work if your list isn't already sorted. But it's a very fast algorithm. It's called a halving algorithm, H-A-L-V-I-N-G. So again, if we looked at the list that we had up here before, we had what? When we put them in sorted order, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. Okay? So if somebody says, is 83 in there? Well, you cut it in half, basically. Here, there's 5. So, is that it? No. Is it greater than that? Yes. So you know it's got to be one of these 2, and these 3 have already been removed. So you do it again. You go, okay, cut it in half. All right, is it that one? No. All right, well, then you know since it's not that one, it's not in there. So it's a very fast algorithm, which they show you in the book here. All right. Sometimes when I go and read through an author's book and I try to think about the way I might do things as opposed to the way an author does it, I'll look and I'll go, wow, it's a very interesting topic. Why the hell did he put it here? And that's when we came to section 712, that's kind of what I thought the first time I read through it. Because what he's saying is, if you remember, since almost day 1 in here, we've been using main, and you've had string, bracket, args. And what that means is it is possible for you to pass things into main. Everything that you pass in is another argument in args. So the first thing you'd pass in would be args sub 0. All right? And that's what he talks about in here. It's not done very often, but it can be done. Okay? The other thing, though, and this is why I think he put it in here, is like some other languages, but not all, Java allows you to have variable length argument lists. What does that mean? That means if you do something like this, it says that I'm going to pass something in and it's going to be integers. Okay? And, well, how many are in it? I don't know. I'll let you know when the program's running. So when something is variable like that, what's nice about it is this kind of a routine could handle an array. If I wanted to add, it could handle an array of 100 ints or an array of 50 ints or an array of 5,000 its. All right. What you'll hear in some programming languages is they'll talk about variadic parameters. Anytime it starts with var like this, what it means is you can vary the number. All right. And finally, the last thing that's discussed in the chapter is they talk about an array list. But again, notice, unlike an array list, unlike an array list, the size can dynamically grow and shrink as the program's moving, or as the program's running. So notice, automatically expands. So if you make it too big, or too small rather, so let's say that I created an array list for the people in here and I made it size 5. As soon as I put in the next person, typically at a minimum what it'll do is it'll double automatically without you having to do anything. All right. So again, automatically adds, automatically shrinks. With that, you get some really ugly looking syntax. Array list, angle bracket string, angle bracket, name list equals new array list, angle bracket string, angle bracket, paren, paren. I don't know about you, I think that's pretty ugly. What this means is it's an array list. This is the type of array list it is, so it can only hold strings. All right, it's called name list, and that probably is pretty explanatory, except what about that? All right. You need the parens in there because you can stick a number in there if you want to. So if I want to create an array list of names and I want there to be 5,000 people when I start, I can put the number 5,000 in there. All right. So the syntax is a little goofy. All right. And really you are using a true object in here. Because notice namelist.add. That's how you add things into an array list. That puts it at the end. If you don't want to put it at the end, you don't have to. You can tell it where in the array list to add it. So they show you some demos in here. So here they're creating an array list. I think if you put no number in there whatsoever, I believe, and it was in the chapter, I probably just ran through it too fast, but I think it's 16 is the size it gets by default. So that it holds 16 names. As soon as you get to name 17, it doubles it to 32. So that's how you add things. Notice you use get. That should sound familiar to you. So there's a count that works with it. In other words, but here it's called size instead of count. So it says that's an array list with 3 objects in it. Okay. What we're going to end up doing if we have enough time to do this, all right, it's going to be a little bit different kind of class period on Wednesday. I'm going to give you an hour to work on it like we did before. I'm going to quickly go through my example, but then I'm going to go through an array list example with you also, just so you can see it in action. All right. You can use the enhanced for loop with an array list, just like you do with a regular array. You can work with a toString method. We're going to look at the toString more in the next chapter. All right, you can remove items. So not only is there an add, there's a remove. And notice there's an insert. You say, wait a minute, you already said there's an add. Add automatically adds them to the end of the list. Insert, you tell it where to add it. So if you knew you wanted to put something in there between the current number or element 3 and element 4, you could do that with the insert mechanism. And the other things will move down or move up accordingly, automatically.
Do you have to resort it then?
Well, you would probably have, that's what I'm saying. What you can do is you can check for position and then put it in the right place so it's automatically sorted. All right, so a lot of times that's how it's used. You can replace items, literally, which means I had this, but I want it to be replaced with this. This is what I mentioned before. So you're saying that I want to create an array list, but I want it to have 100 items in it to begin with. That's why you need that parens and those parens in there.
Default says it's 10.
Okay, it's 10. Okay.
Yeah. I see that.
And as they say in here, beginning with Java 7, and so that means this is pretty recent. And they're showing you in here there's other ways that you can write this. All right? And it's not very different from what we looked at before, so you really don't have to worry about it. But the point is, you will see array lists. All right, if you go into Java programming, you will use array lists. All right, so what I'm going to attempt to do between now and less than a half an hour from now is to, you don't have to get on, but just watch kind of what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new Java project. I hope I don't have one that's called grades. I don't think I do. Nope. Grades. And I'm doing this literally. Usually I have notes with me. I'm doing this all off the top of my head. So if it's really bad, you'll know it pretty fast. All right, so there's grades. Let me close a couple of these that are open. All right, normally I'd probably make this a lot cleaner and stuff and break it up into a lot more methods than I'm going to, but just to put a few things in here. In fact, I should have said it. I wanted a main, but that's okay. All right, so what I'm going to want to do in here is I'm going to want to read in 10 test scores. You with me? Just 10 test scores. And after I read in those 10 test scores, I want the program to figure out and tell me which was the high grade, which was the low grade, what was the sum of all the grades, and what was the average grade. All right, so those 4 things when we get done. So I'm going to come in up here. Don't have to exactly do it here, but I'm going to do it here anyway. So I'm going to say static int num students equal 10. Okay, and then I'm going to create my array, and I'll just create it right here. Int bracket grades equal new int num students. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That's going to create an array with 10 up to 10 grades in it. Okay, now I want to read those values in there. Again, normally I'd go and put all this stuff into their own method, but just because I want to make sure I get it done or as close to done as possible. All right, I'll just do the system.out.println. Enter score for students. Geesh. LCV plus 1. In fact, I'll put that here. Okay, what am I missing here? What's that? Ah, thank you. See, when in doubt, add a parenthesis, and that was the wrong thing to add. All right, so I'm going to do that. What that'll do is what? That'll allow me to enter in the 10 grades. Well, let's start thinking then what I'm going to need. So int total equal, I'll just initialize it to 0. So what I'm going to do in here is say total plus equal grades LCV. All right, that should make sense to everyone. And what I did was in my own little, these are the grades I'm going to put in. So as we put them in, if I put in those 10 grades that are shown right here, then total is going to be 67 plus 23 plus 48, et cetera, et cetera. So total, when I get done, if I did that right, is going to equal 714. All right, so that'll do all of that. All right, so that'll allow me, I'll just keep that in there, so that'll have my total in there. All right, then afterwards, I'm going to want to put in a double that I'm going to call AVG for my average, 0.0. Now that I've got the sum, I'm going to say the average is equal to, and I want it to float, to cast here, so I'm going to say double total divided by len. All right. So now what I have, I call it len? Yes, I did. All right. So I now have my average and I've got my total in those two things there. Now I also want to get my high grade and my low grade. Okay, so I've got my total, I've got my average, and I want high grade and low grade. So int high grade, just set that to 0, and int low grade, which will also set equal to 0. All right. So I could have done it in here, but I'm going to wait. Now that I've got all this stuff done, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say high grade equal grades sub 0, and also low grade equal grades sub 0. All right. And now I'm going to come through and I'm going to write another loop. And I'm going to say if grades, and I can start with 1 now, but we'll go back and look at all of it in just a second. If grades LCV is greater than high grade, high grade equal grades LCV. All right, so that's that if. And if it's less than low grade, then low grade is now equal to that. All right, so I now should have something in place. Again, normally I would put these each into their own routine, but here I'm putting in the 10 grades and adding them up. Then I'll take those 10 grades and divide them by 10. Then I'll assume that my high and my low grades were the first one so that I can search through all the rest. And if I find any that are less than my current high grade or greater than my current high grade, they become the new high grade, all right, unless they become the new low grade. Now, if I did all that right, it looks like I'm missing a curly. If I did all that right, play computer. All right. So that 714, that should be total. 714 divided by 10, 71.4, that should be the average. All right. The high grade should be 100, and the low grade should be 23. That makes sense to everybody? Just taking a quick look at it? All right. So now, when I'm all done, total points. Well, what did it do? I guess it never stopped because I never actually asked it to read those, did I? I just printed everything out. Well, the good news is it all worked. The bad news is it sure didn't show very much. All right, so I'm going to have to go back in here and where we have the enter the score. I'm trying to figure out if I'd be faster off. Maybe I'll just do it like this. Just do a message dialog. So that's what show input dialog. All right, and
Doesn't your J option pane have to be into something? Your show input?
yes, thank you. So I need another. And what do we have for the numbers? Oops. $67, 23, 48, 99, 100, 29, 77, 80, 93, and 98. All right. Total points, total average, high grade and low grade. All right. Now, I wouldn't expect you to be able to, to belt that out that fast. All right. But is there anything that we just went through there quickly that didn't make sense to you? We came in. This wasn't new. None of the stuff right here was new. We created a brand new. I'll take your question in a sec. We created a constant. And really, I guess I should have probably made that all in caps. All right. Okay. And then there's our array of grades. All right. There's how many grades are going to be in that. Okay. That's the total of all 10 of those grades added up. That's all 10 of those grades added up divided by 10. That's the highest grade. That's the lowest grade. As Roger said, I had to read that in since we were using a show input dialog. So we read it into input string. This is just going to hold everything I wanted to print out. So we're looping through here. Input the 10 grades. All right, so that's what we're doing in here. So that's inputting the individual grade. That's converting it over to an integer, and that's adding it to our accumulator. Does all that make sense? All right. Then this is the average. That's that total. That's at 714. I casted it into a double, so I didn't lose any of the fractional component. And so that's 714 divided by 10, which has given us the 71.4. Then, and again, normally this would be two different methods, but I put them all together. All right, so I'm assuming both the high and the low grades are the first array element, and then if you find a higher one, it becomes the new high grade. If you find a lower one, it becomes the new low grade. Just throw everything in there, and then print it out. You had a question?
You already answered it with the double. I was wondering if the double should be forward.
Yeah, you could have done it a lot of different ways. So, any questions on that? Why? And the reason I'm showing you that, and I took the time to show you that, granted a little quicker than I thought I would, but what I'm going to ask you to do for next class, it's sort of a combination of 2 or 3 of the programs that are actually at the end of the chapter. Where is it? Thought I put it out here. Well, if I didn't, I'll have to put it out here. There it is. And this is out there, so you don't have to write this down. This is out there under your homework file already. I want you to create an array, and I want you to fill it with 25 random integers. All right? And I say this is the only global program variable that you can have. If you want to, you can make a copy of it, make that global. But I want all the other stuff that you create in there. All right? I don't want them to be global. Okay? Then I want you to write separate methods to do each of these things. I want you to write a method that will create a simple menu for you. All right? That tells you enter a number from 0 to 8. Okay? If you enter a 0, the program should stop. If you enter a 1, it should allow you to enter 25 new numbers or create 25 new numbers. If you enter a 2, it should show you the current array. If you enter a 3, it should show you the smallest array element. A 4 should show you the largest array element. A 5, and you'll have to look these up, these two. A 5 will show the array in ascending order. A 6 will show it in descending order. 7 will show the sum of all the array elements. And 8 will show you the average. All right? And to show you, so I've got it in here someplace. Try to remember what I called it now. ArrayFun. All right. And it's a little longer than the other programs that you've done. But here's mine. And it had a bug in it, but I hope I fixed it. We're going to find out right now. So there's the original array. I just called it right away. So you can see the numbers that are in there. So again, play computer. Looks like 99 is the biggest one. And it looks like 4 is the smallest one. Just taking a quick look at it. All right. So if I come in here now, all right, and I've already displayed it to you, so I can do a 3 to get the smallest. Well, it didn't show it. That was good. Smallest is 4. A 4. Largest is 99. That looks good. A 5, which will show the array in ascending order. A 6, which will show it in descending order. All right. A 7, which will show the sum of all the elements. And an 8, which will show the average of all the elements. The average most of the time should be between about 45 and 55, somewhere in there, because if it's truly random. Does what I'm asking you to do make sense? All right. So I'll give you an hour to work on that, and then I'll show you what I did. But I probably won't spend the whole time showing you what I did. I'll probably stop at around 11:30 so I can quick show you the other program that I have that has the ArrayList in it. All right, just so you at least have an exposure to that. So we'll do that on Wednesday, go over what your next assignment is, and then as always, next week will be lab. Questions on anything? All right, because that's all I had.